Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to episode 2 of Ghost Stories. I think I'm going to upload these really late at night because I think that the audience really appreciates that. These are stories for nighttime. These aren't daytime stories. These aren't pretty, fun, and friendly, bouncy kind of things. These are normally a little bit on the disturbing side of things, so I'm going to upload these late at night. Night owls love this kind of stuff anyway, and I can't sleep for obvious reasons. But anyway, let's just cut right to the story and be telling 3 stories today, 2 about pets, and 1 that really fucked me up bad a couple of years back. The first story is pretty recent, from only a few years ago, and it comes a few weeks after I got engaged to my fiance. If you guys haven't seen the video, you should click up in the top left corner to see how I proposed to my fiance and how and why I got Ozzy. But long story short, Ozzy was a gift from me to my fiance, a symbol of long-term commitment that I promised her that I would get her a Shiba Inu puppy. These guys are really rare. They're really hard to find in the United States. It cost me, let's just say, 4 months of eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. That would be a nice number. And what I soon found out is that this dog, while he looks really cute in these pictures, he's actually a little spitfire. He's just 4.5 pounds of fury, hard to pet, hard to play with. He loved my bed. I didn't let him get in the bed with me because he liked to chew my face and he farted a little bit, but once he calmed down, once he behaved a little bit better, I started letting him crawl into the bed with me, and he'd normally sleep at my feet or up by my head somewhere. And I lived in a really crappy house, so in the wintertime when I got him, I think I proposed in September, I really needed the heat. I mean, it was probably like 45 degrees Fahrenheit, 40 degrees Fahrenheit in my room, so me and the dog would just kind of snuggle together for survival. Some nights he was a little ass, some nights he would want to pee in the room or do bad things, so I'd have to put him in his crate, which you should have also seen in the pictures. And I just kind of swapped up, like some nights, like Ozzy, I don't want to deal with you, go in the crate. Some nights it was Ozzy, you can stay in the bed with me and we'll cuddle and be cute together. Well, one particular night I was sleeping in bed, just minding my own business in a house that had not really had anything spooky, creepy, ghost-like going on, and I felt these little paws just kind of crawling around on my chest like doot, like little doggy paws, just kind of like a little fat 4-pound Ozymandias was walking around on me. And then I heard, coming from the cage, I heard a little just this really mean, nasty growling that I hadn't heard from Ozzy before. And I say that because he'd growled at me when we had to punish him for crapping in the house or chewing on my computer cables or when he wanted something. But I never heard this really mean, evil, like fending off Satan himself kind of growl, like a really defensive one. It really kind of threw me off guard. And I was like, Ozzy, what the fuck are you growling at, man? And the little feet's just still pitter-pattering around on the bed. And then I hear the pressure goes away, and feet jump off the bed, hit the ground, make their little noise, and then I hear go, and he just kept growling. And it was about that time it sank in that Ozzy was growling from the cage. Then what the fuck was walking on my chest in the bed? I wasn't just imagining this. The thing that woke me up wasn't actually the feet walking on me. The thing that woke me up was that Ozzy was growling at whatever in the hell was walking on me. At the time, it didn't sink in immediately, but when it did sink in, it was like a ton of bricks that just immediately froze in place, just like you go back to your safe place when you're 4 years old. Maybe if I don't move, it won't know that I'm awake, and everything will be just fine. I probably sat there for about 30 minutes just frozen in fear, and I really didn't know what was going on. When it was obvious that everything was okay, I got up, I turned the lights on, I looked around, and everything was totally fine, except Ozzy wasn't very happy looking. He looked pretty righteously pissed off, and I really don't know what that was. I don't know, maybe I was imagining him growling, maybe I was imagining something being on me. Maybe it was a really big rat of some kind, maybe some other kind of animal, but we didn't have any rats or any other animals in the house that I'm aware of, and there was nowhere for it to go. Since Ozzy was a little beaver and he liked to get into things, pretty much every nook, corner, crevice, cranny, anything in my room was plugged with cardboard and tape, so there was nowhere for any animal to escape to, but there was absolutely nothing in the room, and there was something very obviously disturbing something very obviously disturbing Ozzy. I like to chalk this one up to a ghost. It can't be explained easily unless some sort of animal escaped without me knowing about it, but it definitely did creep me right the fuck out. The next story that I'm going to tell is a little bit less scary, and it doesn't involve any ghosts at all, but it is kind of an interesting one, and it is animal related. When I lived out in that house in Texas, the one that I think might have been owned by a cult or used for smuggling that I described in the last episode, it was pretty far out in the country, so we had coyotes and maybe wolves and all sorts of varmints and dangerous things out there. One night when I was in my bed trying to sleep, I heard a lot of howling outside, like a coyote howling. I'm pretty sure it's not a wolf. I don't think that there are timber wolves or anything like that in Texas. I heard a lot of howling outside, and I mean a whole lot. And I heard dogs barking and growling and fighting. And for some reason, I was curious enough to get up and walk to my window and look outside to see what was going on. And I noticed something run by my window really, really fast. I didn't know what it was. It was just a big blur. I was just sitting there kind of looking, and about 30 seconds later, zoom, another streak went by, and then about another 30 seconds after that, another one. And I started paying a little bit more attention, and what I noticed was that the streak in the front was orange, because I had a dog at the time that was a mix between a chow and a golden retriever. Looked a lot like Ozzy did, but a little bit bigger. It was a female. Her name was Sunshine. I got her for free out of the back of a pickup truck at Walmart. Those kind of dogs that last forever. They're just really hardy. You know, those free Walmart dogs you can't get rid of. You like throw it off a bridge, it'd show up the next day. Hi, how you doing? What's up? And I realized that there was actually a pack of coyotes chasing after my dog, and my dog was running circles around the house, barking and growling, and there was howling off in the distance, and it was all very confusing, but it sank into me. My dog was about to get eaten. I don't know if it was trying to defend the house or survive or signal us or something, but I immediately, I'm just in my pajamas here, bust out of my room, run down the stairs, run out to the sunroom, and open the sunroom door, and about as soon as I do, my dog, Sunshine, just bursts out of the darkness, runs right past me, and right directly into the house, and I slam the sunroom door shut and lock it, and as soon as I do, I see a coyote run up just barely out of the darkness and kind of poke its head around and look, and kind of like, man, fuck it, that dog got in the house with all the people, I'm going to go chase some rabbits. Right there with its yellow eyes, and turn around and just walk back off into the darkness. I'd say it was significant that my dog ran into the house, because the dog never ever liked being in houses. It was just one of those dogs that wanted to be outside, hated being in the houses. This dog would come in the sunroom every now and then, but he would get really mad if you put it in the house, like trying not to go in the house. This time when I opened the door, the dog just blew past me, went in the house, got under the table, and hid. I would say that I came very close to losing my doggie that night, but I managed to save her. She died at a ripe old age of 13, 14, I think, many years later. Not that scary, but I thought it was worth telling. Now, the next story is going to be a lot creepier, so get ready. So, the house in Texas wasn't the only haunted house that I lived in. I also lived in a place in Kentucky. Specifically, it was in Harrodsburg, Kentucky, and kind of out in the country on Cornishville Road. I wish I could find the place on Google Maps, but it's really hard to find. It's somewhere in between Harrodsburg and Cornishville, Kentucky, if you're familiar with those places. But the house we got, I don't know if it was Indian territory or not. I'm going to assume that it was, and us whiteys moved in and killed them all and drove them away, and we took it from them. Don't know what if any difference that makes. I do know that the house we bought had a slave cemetery on it, which was interesting to say the least. It was this plot of land removed about 300 yards from the house, and it was just kind of lumpy, uneven ground, like a little clearing where a lot of trees were, and there were some old busted stones that were so eroded. Yeah, I really would have just thought it was a pile of rocks or maybe a really, really old campfire kind of place if it weren't for the realtors telling us that was a slave cemetery. This particular piece of property was also owned by a group of Quakers, which, if I'm not mistaken, they used to build these weird Quaker walls. So we had these weird little, like, shoddy, rundown walls made out of rock running all over our property. And somebody, I don't know if it's true or not, knowing my luck, it's probably not true, they told us that this particular group of Quakers didn't believe in having sex at all. They believed that that it was just impure. So after 1 or 2 generations, they all died out and went away. And last but not least, there was a baby die in the house. The couple that sold it to us, they said that they had a miscarriage and no longer needed a family house. When we were touring the place. We went and looked at the toy room, which they were a little bit reluctant to show us, but you know, we wanted to see it. We wanted to see the whole house, so we looked in there anyway. And there were toys in there for a baby that had very obviously had been born. Slightly older baby toys, not the absolute infant, not the unused, unopened kind. So, yeah, that was a little bit creepy. Anyway, this house, if those factors don't make any difference, it was just a fucking creepy place. It looked beautiful, but then once you live there, you get this really weird feeling that something's watching you, that something's off. It just felt kind of odd. The forest around the house, it wasn't a particularly bad forest, but if you went out a little bit, it got kind of thick. It got kind of creepy. It had its own problem with coyotes and wolves, but I just had this problem with this house of always feeling like I was being watched, just always feeling like I was being watched, like a sense of imminent dread is brooding in the air over me. That might have also had to do with my family situation at the time, which was extremely volatile. There was a small-time drug operation going on there. There were marital problems going on there. There was false insurance claims, stealing money, minor domestic abuse cases, possible attempted murders, things like that going on. You could chalk that up to the house being haunted or bad people, bad situation. Maybe it was influencing my mind in a bad way, but I really started to lose it in this house, and it brought back an old phobia of mine. I have a small phobia about dolls with glass eyes, which is kind of funny considering my dog practically has solid black glass eyes and they're not threatening at all. But I really hated those dolls that have those solid black glass eyes to where the light glints off of them in any direction that you look at it, because I always feel like I'm being watched. I always feel like the dolls are watching me. This might date back to when I was a child and I watched Attack of the Killer Toys. No, it was Attack of the Demonic Toys and the Puppet Master and little things like this, but really hated it. And unfortunately, my family was very rich, so we had a lot of stuffed animals, a lot of toys, a lot of leftover animals from when I was a kid, a lot from my little brother who was probably 2 or 3 at the time. I had just turned 13 years old living in this house. Actually, my little brother was 4. That's how old he was. Yeah, I had just turned 14. I was living out here in Kentucky in a very volatile situation, and I could not escape the dread in this house, and I hated these fucking animals. There's one animal in particular that I hated so much. I'd always turn it around and make it face the wall so that it wouldn't look at me. And the toy room where the baby may or may not have died was in the very center of the house in the basement. It was one of those houses that are built halfway into a hill with like a balcony or a deck hanging off the over half. And the bottom room was supposed to be like a game room with a small kitchen, and then they had a toy room in the back for the kids. But the toy room was inside the hill. It had no windows, no nothing but artificial light, which I always found uncomfortable. And of all the rooms in the house, the toy room was by far the most uncomfortable. Like, I just hated being in there. I never felt alone in there. I never felt comfortable in there. Maybe it was the light. Maybe there was carbon monoxide. Maybe there's something wrong with the EMF in the house. There was something just wrong about that house and that room and those animals that were just always looking at me. And it really bore into my mind. Every time I'd go in there, there'd be an animal looking at me. It'd be looking at me. It'd be looking at me. The one that I would turn around and face the wall would always be turned around facing the door. Again, I chalk this up to my little brother and my mom just, you know, coming in and tidying up, but I hated it so fucking much. You guys don't realize how much it bothered me. So one day I went in there to get something, and all the animals were sitting on the shelf, and that one was staring at the door for about the 10,000th time in a row, and I just couldn't stand it. That was the snapping point. It was like, fuck it. I'm sick of all these fucking animals looking at me. I'm going to go and I'm going to solve this problem. There's no way I could put them all up because they took up just a huge shelf in the room. Like, imagine a wall in your house and make that a shelf of, you know, 500 random-ass stuffed animals. Yeah, we were kind of rich. So I turned all of these animals around and made every single one of those, at least 100, 200, probably closer to 300 or 400, face the wall. Just so nothing was animal backs and asses facing me. No eyes, no nothing. Nothing to worry about. It was, oh, God. So relieving. Felt so much better to go in that toy room and do my thing and mind my own business because the basement was pretty much mine in that house. It was always a little bit creepy, but it was still very much so mine. There was only one way in and out, that was the stairs. The toy room was always in sight of me and the stairs, so there was no real way for anybody to get in and out of any of the rooms in the basement without me knowing about it, because it was my basement. So it was impossible for people to sneak around down there unless I was just totally passed out. So I went and sat down at the TV, and I probably played a little bit of Nintendo 64, probably some Star Fox, or maybe, Super Mario. Actually, it probably had like Duke Nukem or Road Rash going on. But I say this to emphasize that I was watching TV for an hour, maybe two, and literally nobody came down in the basement. And the way it's constructed, I see the stairs all the time, and I see all the rooms at the other time. They're always in the background, like past the TV. So it'd be nearly impossible for anybody to go down there. And it was about, like I said, an hour, 2 hours later. I wanted to get something from the toy room. I can't remember what it was, just some particular toy, some game, some video. And I walk in there not thinking anything. I just turned all the animals around so that they're facing the wall, and I'm thinking, when I open this door, I'm not going to have to see a single animal. Nothing's going to be staring at me. That big doll that I hated more than all the rest of them, it won't be staring at me. I won't have to worry about it. And I open the door, and I about had a heart attack. It creeps me out to this day. Every single one of the animals had been turned around, and they were facing the door, and that one that I hated the most was right in the middle, just staring right at the door, just his demon glass eyes looking at me. And for the worst part is this is a flat shelf. I mean, it goes pretty far in both directions. So when you open the door, you can look to the left and see stuffed animals, and look to the right and see stuffed animals. And when somebody put them on the shelf right, and they're all staring straight ahead, you got some of them that are just staring at the wall and not really looking at you. No. All of these were like in a semicircle. All of them were turned so that every single one of those hundreds of glass eyes were just staring at me right there, right when I opened the door, and they were all just looking at me. And I can't even remember what I did. I think I just froze for a second. I felt my heart sink into my stomach, and everything started getting cold, and I about lost my mind. I just slammed the door, left the basement, went upstairs, and I probably just gorged myself on some food or did something to distract myself for the rest of the day. It was a situation where there weren't a lot of parents for me to talk to, especially none in any kind of state to deal with something like this. So I just sucked it up and dealt with it, and I was absolutely terrified of stuffed animals for such a long time after this. It really wrecked me. I think that maybe like 2 days later I went back down in the basement and opened the door, and they were all facing a normal direction, still facing the door, but not in a little semicircle. I guess my mom had cleaned it up, or whatever the fuck was wrong with that house was done having its fun. It really took me a long time to get over stuffed animals with glass eyes after I left that house. It was especially hard because my fiance is really good at making stuffed animals, so when she'd make them with glass eyes, I just kind of had to suck it up and deal with it. But it doesn't really bother me now. I've got over it. But at the time, that really almost gave me a heart attack. I don't know if you realize how bad it is to spend a significant amount of time moving objects in a specific way because they bother you, and then have them all turn around and face you. It just melted me. That's my ghost story for the night. If you guys want more, just be sure to let me know, drop a like, favorite, and all that. The more views these get, the more ghost stories I tell. I've got plenty, unfortunately, and I can guarantee you I probably won't be sleeping now that I've brought back all of these wonderful memories from my childhood. Drifter out.